Stay connected to your community and save. Just 99 cents a month gets you 3 months of unlimited access to Inform.com. Visit Inform.com/subscribe and get your first 3 months of news for only 99 cents a month.
As one local archivist retires, a look at just how important these people are to our community. Hi, this is Tracy Briggs, and welcome to Back Then. When I was a kid, I wanted to be two things: a nurse and a fashion designer. Probably not at the same time. I think the nurse thing came about because at the age of 4, I hadn't really been exposed to many women in the workplace. But I saw nurses. They seemed nice and they wore pretty white uniforms. But as I grew up, the dream of being a nurse faded when I realized it wasn't just about wearing those pretty white uniforms. There was medical stuff to do. And that grossed me out. And a lot of it still does. Even today, I can't really even watch those promos for Dr. Pimple Popper. I don't know how anybody watches that show. Anyway, kudos to all of you nurses, including my sister. You guys are all angels on earth for what you do. By the time I was 8 years old, I decided fashion design was for me. I remember my cousin Kelly and I drawing pictures of women in elaborate gowns. I even autographed my sketches, Designs by Cinnamon. As a kid, I thought Cinnamon seemed like a more exotic name than Tracy. As an adult, it conjures up images of a stripper pole or RuPaul's Drag Race. The questionable name aside, I also just happen to lack any artistic ability, talent, or vision. So both of those dreams faded. I eventually found my path into journalism, and it's been a good run in television, radio, and newspapers. Thanks so much, Forum Communications. But now I have a new dream job: archivist. An archivist is defined as a person who has the job of collecting and storing the materials in an archive, a place in which public records or historical materials are preserved. There's no photo of an archivist in the dictionary, but if there were, he or she should be wearing a superhero cape. That is how much I love and appreciate archivists. I started thinking a lot about this lately as Clay County archivist Mark Peel is set to retire. I'm not going to go into great detail about this amazing man because my colleagues David Olson from The Forum and Kevin Wallivan from WDAY have written wonderful stories about him. He has helped us for how many years now? 37 years. Understand not just the history of Clay County, but the entire region. If you want to read both Dave Olson and Kevin Wallivan's stories, I highly recommend it. Go to Inform.com and just Google longtime Clay County archivist Mark Peel and the name Wallivan or Dave Olson, and you should be able to find that. Or go into my story here on Inform, and I've got the links to both of those stories there. You can learn all about Mark. I first met Mark in 1989. I had been assigned to do stories for WDAY TV about the North Dakota Centennial. I don't recall exactly what story I was doing, but when my boss at the time, Al Ahmet, suggested I talk to Mark in Clay County, I was a little bit puzzled. I remember saying something like, the story's about North Dakota, so why would I talk to an archivist in Minnesota? Al said something along the lines of, nah, talk to Mark. He knows everything. Al was right, and Mark proved it year after year after year with every history story we worked on together. A typical email would go something like this between us. Hey, Mark, it's Tracy. I'm doing a story on so-and-so. Do you happen to have any information or photos? Mark would reply, sure, Tracy, come on over. He was almost always my first contact when I had a question about history, no matter where that history took place. If he didn't know the answer or have photos, he might know who would. The fact is, we are incredibly blessed with the best historians and archivists in our region, including Peel's colleague in Clay County, Marcus Kruger. The NDSU archives, including staff members like Matt Talent and John Hallberg and more, are always generous in finding and sharing their images and resources through digital horizons. The State Historical Society of North Dakota and its many historians and archivists are also efficient and helpful. They make my job so much easier. One of my favorite employees is Greta Beck, who is responsible for finding a lot of the old film you see in my stories. A typical email with her might go something like this. Hey, Greta, you don't happen to have any old film of XYZ from 1968, do you? And she'd reply, sure, when do you need it? Again, All of them deserve superhero capes. And the archives aren't just here to help we history columnists. The archives can assist individuals as they research family genealogy, work on projects, or write books. Just visit each of their websites for more information about their resources, services, and costs. In my experience, many of them are modest about their work, so I'm tooting their horns. These people keep the history of our region alive, and we are all the better for it. So perhaps it's this admiration I have for archivists that makes me want to be a part of their profession. Just the other day, I was in the Forum archives with another self-described history nerd, my coworker, Danielle Teigen. We were going through files and talking about going down rabbit holes of research, learning so much about the past. We were like kids in a musty old candy shop where the treats weren't lollipops and licorice, but crinkled old newspaper clippings and rolls of microfilm. I commented that sometimes I find it hard to leave the archives, but at some point, the research ends and the writing has to begin. Now, don't get me wrong, I still love writing, and I realize if I wanted to make a career change and suddenly become an archivist, I'd have to go back to school to get qualified, and frankly, I'm just a little too lazy for that. So for now, I'll keep doing what I'm doing, taking the information these archivists give me and turning them into stories for readers. Best of all, with the continued help of archivists like Mark Peel and the many others in our region, it's a pretty easy and enjoyable gig. And for me, probably more practical than being a fashion designing nurse. Best of luck to you, Mark Peel, and literally thank you for all of the memories. And that is Back Then. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you catch me next time.
Get reliable and accurate local news with Inform.com. Inform.com is your trusted local news source with journalists dedicated to keeping you informed about what's happening in your community. Visit Inform.com now.